I want to thank you all for joining me today. My name is Bobby Carlton. I'm with FS Studio. I am the track chair here, and I do want to bring up our next presenters. They will be talking about VR, the next evolution for OSHA compliance pit training. Of course, a lot of opportunities there. You know how OSHA is, right? I mean, I'm sure there's people who know OSHA is out here, so having VR training is a big part of it. So I'd like to introduce Steve Drake, Forklift University, and Anwar Sadath from Travancore and Analytics.
Thank you. I'll go first.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. My name is Anwar Sadath, VP of Engineering and Head of XR at Travancore Analytics. I've been with this industry. I've been making softwares for last 20 years, and I've been doing AR, VR in last 8 years. Travancore Analytics is a custom software development company. We started in 2007. We have services like embedded and IoT, cloud applications, mobile DevOps, and software testing, and AR/VR. Our AR/VR journey started in 2014, building a software development kit for Google Cardboard, which streams stereoscopic video from American football stadium to the mobile phones. That was our first VR application. After that, we done a lot of VR and AR application that includes Winter Olympics 2018. We did create applications for Indian Navy to train their naval cadets, and we work with the major sports leagues to stream their content, augment their extra information on the American sports. Then a lot of training applications that we have developed. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Stephen Drake. He's the CEO of Virtual Forklift. We worked with him to create a VR-based forklift training that helps train people get trained on how to use the forklift, and it's the best way to get trained on virtual reality. Welcome, Steve.
How you doing, guys? So, I've been developing software since, well, probably before most of you guys were born. I remember DOS-1. I remember CP/M. My first PC was an IBM PC 5-slot, and speeds were nothing. I got into forklift safety because it helps people get jobs. It helps people to move into productive lives for their families. And recently, we found VR as an option to help train the younger generation. How do you pull in the digital age, right? They don't want to be in the physical world. So with VR, we use that to bring the younger generation into the supply chain. And everybody knows how the supply chain in the last few years is broken down. We need people to move forklifts. Our introduction was PIT, Powered Industrial Trucks. That's what that means. And they're forklifts. So we used to use and resell another product. What we found in the industry is that most of the VR companies were based around gaming and games. And I understand that because that's where VR and everything came from. But when you go to teach an older worker, or you want to teach proper skills to, I don't even know if I'm, oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. You want to teach the skills to the newer workers, you want to be able to hit skill sets that fit. So when I went looking for companies, I've developed in India, I've developed around the world actually in a lot of different applications. The big thing for me, and I'm the product here, So Travancore actually listened to me. They listened to my forklift trainers, and they helped us get to the point of developing a system that works for training, that's modular, and obviously you guys now know I'm way older than most of you. I get sick in VR. Every VR that I'd been in before, within a minute or two, I had major VR sickness. The system we developed doesn't give me that. And I tasked them with that specifically. We went to higher frame rates. We went to higher headsets. We went to more powerful computers to actually provide the level of training that we needed for what we were doing. It's been about a year, and okay, so it's been about a year that we've been doing this. Part of the reason that we went to VR is these percentages. You learn best in experience. I've been teaching for 20 years with slideshows, with hands-on. But now with VR, I can get to that 70 and 80% retention rate and understanding rate without having to have a slideshow. I put them into it. Even new people today, they get in, they figure out the controls, and they're able to move pallets and move product around, and that will translate to real-world skills to take care of their families. Previous systems, like I said, they didn't have industry experience. They wouldn't listen to us. There were other things that had to do with curriculum. If anybody here saw all the forklift drivers as we set up this show, every one of those guys had to go through forklift safety training. They have to have a license. They have to be trained and evaluated. So we're taking the VR systems to a level that with a little bit of time and a little bit of industry focus will be acceptable to OSHA. And you'll be able to train and certify in VR, and then it'll translate directly to the real world experience. We do work with schools, trade techs, places like that to help that whole industry, because you may be an electrician, but you still use a forklift. You may be a carpenter and you still use a forklift, or a mason. Every one of those industries still have forklift safety training. It's not just warehouse. So we're working on things in trade schools and industry and that kind of thing. Let's see what else. So this is actually at one of my customers. This is how we used to train. Anybody knows Hoonigans? They're doing donuts. Teaching turning. So turning a forklift is very different from driving a car. These things allow us to do it. He's using the HTC with the Leap, and you'll see how robust this environment is. Even the other VR systems are not this detailed. We have 3-pedal systems that match the propane forklifts. This system is what we call the light or the live, where I'm actually in the environment instructing these operators what to do. This becomes part of that OSHA compliance, because I can be in the system and watching somebody drive it and tell them how far they are from the racks, how high their forks are, teach them to drive around the cones. We develop the handsets, the controls. So Travancore is my software developers, but my team here in the States built 3D products that would allow you to do lift, tilt, and side shift. I've already told you some of this. Reasonable price, they're communicative. They've done an excellent job at understanding what we do and how we do it. The regular meetings help, the interaction helps. So for me, this is one of my better choices over the last 20 years of overseas development. I'm going to give it back to the smart guy.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I'll go sit down. Yeah, you can finish out.
Right. So imagine stepping into Steve and his team, his world. So as we began our engagement, we recognized the importance of understanding the needs and challenges that he was facing before. So we listened carefully, empathetically. With that knowledge, we assembled a team fueled with enthusiasm, imagination, and creativity. Our mission was so clear. We wanted to build the best virtual reality training for Steve. We didn't even stop there. Actually, to gain the deeper understanding, I took a class from Steve. He actually explained to me how to operate this, the 4-hour training. I could do some, I think I did right, Steve, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
drove for several
Right.
hours.
Yeah. So basically, this allowed us to understand every instruction, tip, and the terms of training, and I really understand the philosophy of the training that Steve does with his students.
If you notice, I don't mean to interrupt too much,
Yes,
but
so-
a forklift turns differently than a car. And so as engineers, they needed to understand those dynamics. How does it turn? How does it lift? What happens when you put the forks down or into a pallet? Or even weight differences. So we did hands-on, so that would translate into his VR programming. And I think that was a very big step in getting the product correct.
So that was the first phase of our engagement with Steve. Then when we started building the application, we faced certain challenges. So as Steve mentioned, motion sickness was one of the biggest problem that he was facing. So we had to, one of the reason for the motion sickness, because you cheat your brain with the virtual reality, that your brain will have to believe that you are in a real world. So you will have to make the environment more realistic to get to, you cannot avoid the motion sickness, but you can reduce the motion sickness. So that is what we did. We increased the frame rate with making some changes in the code. Then we gave the realistic environment by adding certain proper lighting and all. That is what we did to reduce the motion sickness. Then the existing system had tough calibration mechanism. You had to go through a lot of process to calibrate the existing system with the steering wheels and the controls. So where we came up with a 3-step calibration, which is very easy to calibrate the controls, so that somebody who is setting up the environment, they don't have to go through this tough calibration. Finally, Steve wanted to record the entire training session. But if you think about the virtual reality, if you record the entire training session, you will have to record the 360-degree video. So the 360-degree video, which has challenges, like it will use a lot of processing of your system, and when you review it, you will not be able to see this from a different angle. So we came up with an event-based recording system, and we developed a player for him. Using that player, you will be able to watch the recorded session from any angle when you review it. So we didn't stop there. So this is the version that we developed for Steve initially. It has an HDCY, which requires a lot of steps to setting up. Then a Logitech steering wheel. The current system will only work with the Logitech steering wheel. Then you need a very high-end system. Then a custom forklift controller. So this is what we have right now. Then this is what we are building right now. It's a lighter version of the forklift. It uses a MetaQuest, and it can work with any steering wheel. You just need to calibrate that with the application. And instead of a high-end PC, you can use a mini PC like a Raspberry Pi to communicate with the headset, and any forklift controller. Forklift controller is custom that we made for this particular purpose. So with this, we have some advantages. So it is very easy to setting up. And you can, one other speciality of this setup is that you can collaborate with others. Like Steve mentioned, I can get the training from India with the headset, and Steve can train from US or anywhere in the world. And you can invite other people to get trained. They just need a Oculus headset. They don't need even, just to see the training, they don't even need a steering wheel or a controller. And definitely this will reduce the pricing.
Can I interject on
Sure.
that group? So I have customers like Coca-Cola, the plants up and down California, and they have difficulty getting people in each of the plants trained because you have to have a trainer in each location. This particular solution lets me teach one person in a main location and do forklift safety training at any or all the plants at the exact same time. If they add the controller or the steering pedals and the forklift, they can do driver evaluations from one location and see each other drive. The first time we saw this, my trainer was in Wisconsin, I was in Arizona, he and the driving were in India, and another guy was here in Pleasanton. And we were all in the same environment, and if you turn around, you saw the guy behind you if you were in the forklift. The same way we teach right now in our classrooms, in our evaluations.
Right. Now it's the time to conclude. Before I conclude, I have one last thing to say. So our team is working really hard to build this software. We really like to get feedbacks on this. So please do drop by our booth number 739. So you will get experience this HTC version of the forklift and other cool application that we have building in augmented reality and virtual reality space.
Awesome, thank you guys. If anybody has any questions, we do have time for a couple of questions if anybody has any. Oh, we have one right over here, guys.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, now that you've implemented the system, do you have any numbers or data with regards to just optimization on, for example, how long it took to train someone or learning curves and so on and so forth with the system?
So, I don't know, I have that voice, but. So my typical training previously was a 2-hour classroom and about 4 to 6 hours of hands-on initial training to make you competent. What we now do is, with the VR, we can get in and do classroom in roughly an hour, hour and a half, and the hands-on is a combination. So we use the modules in the HTC to get you comfortable with the controls, comfortable with the steering, comfortable with the functionality. And then our hands-on still exists, but it's only about an hour or so because we've spent much more time. So we still have a 3-hour, 4-hour class window, but you're able to experience it in a safe environment. A lot of people, when we teach hands-on, drop a pallet, you run into a rack. I have holes in my walls in my warehouse in Vegas because of physical. So now by bringing the VR in, you understand how it works, you understand how to drive, so when you step into it, you're sped up in the physical end. Does that answer? Anything else?
Anybody else have any questions? Of course, and please visit their booth at 739. They will be there. If you happen to come up with a question later, definitely ask them then.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.